Hello everybody and welcome to the second panels for 30 Days 30 Ways UK. Today I'm joined by Rachel McMahon. Did you want to introduce yourself, Rachel?
Yeah, thanks. My name's Rachel McMahon. I work in the flood resilience team at the Environment Agency.
Thank you. And I'm also joined by Tina Collett.
Morning everyone, I'm Tina Collett from Northamptonshire Fire and Rescue Service, where I'm the prevention team leader.
Thank you both. Rachel and Tina will both be talking about their specific days in a minute. But we've had a good week. We started off on Sunday with Trusted Networks. So Trusted Networks is trying to build the networks on social media about where you can get the most factual information from. We all know social media can be great, and it also can be not so great when you find lots of misinformation on there. So knowing your the person that you'll follow with the factual information. I mean, I know I follow Northamptonshire Fire and Rescue Service. I follow Northamptonshire Police. They'll give me the most up-to-date information of what's going on than following somebody else that might be a rumour and it will quickly spread. And obviously the EA for flooding to look out for them. So we had Trusted Networks on Sunday. We then had Monday, which was a great day in the UK, talking about flood awareness. Rach, I'm going to bring you in. I know flooding is one of the highest risks on the National Risk Register, and a lot of community risk registers have it up high. Rach, how can people, what people can do to know a bit about their flood risk, and what should they do?
Yeah, thanks, Jo. So the best part of our website that people should have a look at is if they go on gov.uk and do search check flooding, then that'll take you through to a section where you can either enter your postcode or the place where you live, and you can find things out about like whether there's any flood warnings that are issued where you are, and also what the river levels are online. I think that's really important as well, because people will be able to see on there the point at which it shows a graph, and it'll show you the time, like the current river level, and then the river level at which when we might start consider issuing flood alerts. So that's the first stage of the flood warning service, and that means that there could be some flooding on low-lying land. And then it also shows the level at which we might start issuing flood warnings. So you can compare that to the current river level and sort of think about whether it's the time when you need to start thinking about acting on your flood plan. So I think that's really helpful for people. And it also tells you what the flood risk is over the next 5 days as well, so you can get a sense of that and what might be coming, which is really, really helpful. So you can see whether it's kind of normal or whether the river levels are rising as well. So that's really helpful. What we do have for people is a flood warning service, which is free. And it's really easy for people to sign up to this, and they can give us their preferred combination of mobile and email addresses, or they might want to get the message as a text. And the aim of that service is to give people some advance notice of when any flooding might be expected. So the aim, broadly speaking, is to perhaps give people 2 hours notice of any flooding from the main rivers. So that's a really helpful service that we have for people as well. So there's lots more that we can tell people about as well, but I'll see what other questions you have for me first.
Yeah, thank you, Rachel. I know it is quite. I mean, when you work with communities, I always find it's amazing that you still haven't got enough. It's about 50% take up, isn't it? That people live in a flood area, and only 50% of people still only sign up for flood alerts.
Yeah, I don't even think it's that high, to be honest. If you,
okay.
Broadly speaking, across the country, of the 100% of people that could sign up, I think there's about 25% of people that have proactively done this. But we do have agreements with some of the mobile phone companies, so we can say to them, give me all the mobile phones that you've got in this flood risk area and bash out this message for us, and it'll send a text. So, but people might not be expecting that, and so there's also an issue that if it comes through as a text, would people click on anything that's in the text message? So a key part of my role is to get out and about in communities that are at high flood risk, just to explain that to them and just to make sure they are signed up to get those free warnings. So I think it's really, really important, because there's still quite a high number that we can't reach at all. So yeah, as much as we can spread the word, that would be amazing through taking part in activities like this.
Yeah, that definitely. And also, when you said about the pinging of of mobile phones, there's also the National Alert Scheme, isn't there? And that's predominantly for flooding incidents, but it could be
Yeah,
for anything else. And that's
yeah,
where,
it
if you
has
want to
been.
explain a bit more about
To my knowledge, I think that came into being last year, and it was used somewhere down south for a bomb, the removal of a bomb.
that.
Was it
Right.
Plymouth, Portsmouth, something like that?
Yeah.
It's a cabinet office system, but it has been used for the first time for a flood now, in
Yeah.
Cumbria. So that was
Right.
quite quite good to see how that happens in reality and the triggers for it and what the response was for the community.
Yeah.
So that is something where it would sort of triangulate with any mobile phones that are within a specific area. So it probably would go out to more than actually need it, but it would make sure that people that are on the move, for example, it's quite important for us along the coast in Lincolnshire, for example, that, we can get message out to people that might be on holiday or just passing through the area. So it's important that people don't rely on that though as a first way to receive the message, because that would be very much a last resort, and it's a
Yeah.
cabinet office kind of triggered thing. So, but before any of that would be considered to be issued, we'd already have started issuing the flood warnings at that level,
Yeah.
and probably the severe flood
Yeah.
warnings. So please, we don't want people to rely on that as being the only way in which they'd be informed. So yeah,
Yeah.
definitely think about checking if you're at risk by going onto the Check Flooding website, because it just takes you straight away to the area that's at risk where your postcode is, and it's really easy
Yeah.
to sign up. And also, I know this is something that's online, but say if people aren't, if they don't use computers all that often, the Floodline service that we have, the phone number that people can call to get the latest information or to sign up for the warnings in the first place, make sure that number's programmed into your phone, or that it's by your landline at home, just so that you've got it to hand if you need it and just want to check that bit of information out a bit further.
Yeah. That's great. Thank you, Rach. And anyone on watching this call, if you've got any questions, just put them into the questions and answers, and then we can ask the our guests the questions, and I'll monitor that as we go through. So flooding was a great day on Monday. A lot of activity on social media, and then we had on the Tuesday Safe Escape. So that is knowing if the incident is inside, how to get out, how would you do that? So Tina, I'm going to come over to you for that. Thank you.
Yeah, so what we kind of want people to do is make sure that they thought about it ahead of time. And I know all this has all been about kind of September is about being prepared and preparedness. So making sure that they've kind of thought about an escape route from their home, so that when there is an emergency, it's not the first time you're thinking about it. So make sure in advance you kind of decided on what would be the easiest route out of your house if there was to be a fire alarm going off in the middle of the night. Who would wake who up, who would go to whose room, and then what route you would take out. The most easy route is obviously straight out, directly out your front door, if that's down the stairs and straight out. But then we always get people to think about an alternative route. If they get down or try to get down the stairs, and obviously the fire's on the stairs or in the hallway. So have you got another route out your house, or have you got another plan? So if you did get stuck upstairs because the fire was kind of blocking your route down the stairs and out, then is there a room that you could all gather in? Is there a room with a nice big window that you could then shut the door, open the window, get lots of fresh air in, and then make sure somebody upstairs has always got a phone with them in their bedroom, so you can call for help, and then you can stay in that bedroom until help arrives. It's not going to be too long, and hopefully your nearest fire station isn't that far away and will be there before anything else has kind of crept up and come through that door. So it's all about that kind of being prepared, and don't just think about the plan and then kind of put it to one side. Make sure that you maybe practice that plan. If you've got children, set the alarm off one evening after they've all gone to bed, and see what they do. Put it into practice.
Brilliant.
Let them
great idea.
have a practice at getting out of the house. See if they hear it, because we know it's a known fact that some teenage brains don't necessarily hear the different pitches of fire alarms. So let's have a plan that if there is a teenager that hasn't perhaps woken up from it, that one of the other children or one of the parents is responsible for making making sure everybody's awake when they hear that alarm. And then kind of think about, is there anybody in the house that can't hear the alarm for other reasons? Maybe they take a hearing aid out at night and they sleep without it and they won't hear it. So is there a plan then to go and make sure that person's awake? So just kind of think about all those things ahead of time, practice that plan, and then also really do think about anything that might have changed. You may have changed the layout of your house. You may have knocked down a wall or put up a wall. You may have changed bedrooms, or someone now sleeps downstairs and they won't be able to get back upstairs potentially and get everybody out. Is there, you know, maybe a new baby in the house that won't obviously be able to get itself out? So what would we do? Have you changed maybe the layout of the windows so that you can't necessarily have an opening window that's wide enough to kind of shelter out of or get lots of fresh air in? And then has anything changed with the people in the house? Has the mobility changed? Has someone, I don't know, broken their leg and they now wouldn't be able to get themselves out of the property and for 6 weeks, 8 weeks until they've healed? So it's all those kind of things to kind of think about. But above all, the most important thing in your plan is having that fire alarm, because it won't stop that fire starting, but it will give you a really early warning that something's happening in the property. And if you've got one on each level of your home, it will give you a very early warning. So plenty of time before any fire gets big, and you will be able to then get yourself out the house. We'd rather people be standing outside waving us down when we got there than obviously still in the property that have to be rescued. We want you to be safe, so it's about all that kind of thinking ahead.
Oh, you're on mute, Jo.
That's right. Sorry, I did mute myself. So we have got a question. One of them is about if you do have to leave your property, and they've said difficult flooding or a fire that you have to get out of. Is it worthwhile putting a grab bag together? And what would you say you should put in it? I will come to Rachel first. I think
I was going to say, I was just thinking as Tina was talking about the fire plan, we've kind of got like a separate flood plan with different actions in it that people can take. So again, similar to the fire, the flood plan you can think about in advance. You can think that now. Things like checking your insurance cover is high enough to cover the flood risk for your property. How you might stop water coming in. Have you thought about flood barriers or gates to go across doors and windows? Where to turn off gas and electricity? Moving things to a higher place, and things like the person's mentioned about a grab bag there. Again, that's really, really important, and it's something that people can put together now. So it would contain important documents like maybe driving license, passports, insurance details for the house, and also more practical things. You know, if people are like me, you know, maybe have a spare pair of glasses in there as well. Any medication, and also since COVID, something we've been asked to think about to raise awareness is to encourage people to have copies of their prescriptions in their grab bag as well. Presumably, you know, perhaps it's got their NHS number on it or things like that makes it more easier to find. Because if you were to leave your home during a flood, you know, it could be some time before you go back again, whether that's a few days or a few months. So it's important to think about what you might need during that time. So it is more obvious things like warm clothing, water, food. And if people have pets, obviously they're very important. They're part of our lives and our families, aren't they? So, you know, think about pet food and bedding for your pets as well. So your grab bag in essence, in reality, kind of becomes one of those Mary Poppins type bags. You know, it's just one of those endless, it gets bigger and bigger, but you get the idea of it being like not just a physical bag, but you know, other things as well. And we always just encourage people to have that close to a door, you know, under the stairs, whatever, in a cupboard nearby, just in case. So just important to be as prepared as you can be, just in case you ever did need to leave your home for whatever reason, whatever kind of emergency.
Yeah, definitely. Tina, have you got anything else that you would put in?
I mean, I think Rachel's probably covered everything on what you would say, you would kind of put in.
Yeah.
A really important thing that Rachel just raised as well, by the door, because I can't reiterate enough that we don't want you going back into that house, no matter how important things in that grab bag are, and there are really important things that we've just mentioned. If you don't grab it on the way out, don't go back in. And same for pets. We love our pets to pieces, but a pet will get out the property. If you leave that door open, a cat or a dog will run out. And if it's a tiny small animal, then obviously they're going to be potentially lower down. If you can pick the cage up and go out with it, that's fine. If it's something that is too heavy to pick the cage up, then obviously tell us as soon as we get there, and that will be our priority to go in and rescue those pets. And believe me, we have had all sorts of pets out on properties. We've had big glass cages and tanks where obviously there's snakes, lizards and things that people can't necessarily grab and take that. It's not a little hamster they can kind of pick up and take out with them. If that's the case, just tell us as soon as we get there. And firefighters aren't scared of anything. We've rescued 80 spiders before from a property where they had lots of lots of very big sort of cages with spiders in. They grabbed a few on the way out, but obviously 80, you can imagine that wasn't something you were going back in and in for. So yeah, and you know, we'll go in and we'll get them. They're not scared of things. So we'll they've come out with a lizard on their shoulder before where they've just grabbed it where they can't lift the tank, and even goldfish scooped up in their helmet. So it is possible we can rescue anything. So please, can't enforce enough, don't go back into the property for anything that's precious to you, because you're the most important and precious thing. We can't replace you, but we can replace some documents or medication. Like you said, if we've got the prescription on us, we can replace it. It's really important that you're kind of outside in the fresh air where you're safe.
Yeah, that's great.
Yes.
Great question. I know for me, I'd probably add some playing cards into the bag, because if you've got children, it's a quick fix, you know, game. If you get taken to a reception centre, playing cards a bit for the kids, and also chocolate for me.
Yeah, I guess I was just thinking, it's always a winner.
Yeah.
I guess connected to that, it might be worth just touching on the different codes, the different flood warning codes, because there's different actions that are connected to those as well. So the flood alert, that's the first early stage heads up that there might be some flooding on low-lying land in the area. So that's the sort of first early stage, just to give you a bit of an idea. And that might be issued maybe 2 to 3 days in advance of any flooding that could affect homes.
Right.
And then if the situation escalates a bit, that's when we would issue a flood warning, which means that property could start to be affected in the area. So at the sort of flood alert stage, we'd say to people to think about the bag and to visit our Check Flooding page. And once the flood warnings start to be issued, we tell people to turn off their utilities, move things out of harm's way. And, you know, regardless if you live in a bungalow or a house, you can maybe move things into higher places on the top of shelves or on top of wardrobes. You know, start thinking about doing that now, so that you are as prepared as you can be if any flooding does happen. You're not sort of running around quite a bit at the last minute. And then the highest escalation of the codes, the flood warning codes that we have, is called a severe flood warning. And that is when it's the immediate danger and threat to life. And at that point, you know, if you need to, if you're in immediate danger, please call 999 at that stage and listen to any advice that you're given by the emergency services, and just do all you can to keep yourself and your family safe, of course. But just to reassure also, severe flood warnings are issued only very rarely, not very often, and they're always in conjunction with our emergency services partners. So we're always like working quite closely together to respond to any kind of emergencies, particularly flooding. So everybody's like working together on the same page, looking to identify any people in communities that could need more help than others. So just to do a little bit of reassurance around the severe flood warnings as well. So that's helpful for people to be aware of.
That's great, thank you, Rach. And we do have the grab bag question was brilliant, but we do have a whole grab bag day on the 18th. So if you keep an eye on that day, there'll be lots of best practice from around the UK sharing about the grab bag. So we've had a patch week. We've also discussed knowing who to call. So taking the from people just ringing 999 for everything, anything, to actually knowing whether to ring 101, which is the police non-emergency line, or whether people going to A&E for something quite minor, where they could have rang 111, which is to get through the NHS and talk to a doctor. So we had a day of discussing that and knowing sort of the right choice to make. And tomorrow's all about first aid, so that's always quite a good day. Just learning a first aid skill could, in fact, save someone's life if you know. there's no more questions from the attendees. So I might as well wrap up here. Thank you ever so much, Rach and Tina, for joining me today. The campaign's going fabulously. We've got another panel next week, just to give a summary of next week's activities. Yeah, so we're nearly halfway through. But I look forward to seeing you ladies soon, and thank you ever so much, and thank you for the people that have joined us today to listen to for a summary for this week's activities. See you next week. Thank you very much. Thank you, ladies.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.